Hey everybody, welcome to Cy Canterel. She'll make you smarter, but at first you'll feel dumber. But it's a process. Trust the process. She is a self-described feral scholar. She is my go-to when my small English major brain can't understand the computer and the technology. Cy breaks it down. She has two fantabulous Substacks. She has a brand new Substack with friend of the show, Virginia Heffernan. Cy, please promote that one.
Yes, Virginia and I have started a new podcast. It's called Omni Shambles, which is a older kind of like funny reference to a British comedy show, but it means like the wreckage of everything. And so every week we're going to be going through a new mess, shambles in our society that's making things a little less livable and try to explain it for folks. So we just put out our first episode on how the Doge staffers reveal a disturbing connection to the desk killer, which was the figure that Hannah Arendt explored in Adolf Eichmann from World War II. So,
Really heartwarming, uplifting stuff. Uh,
yeah.
Sadly, very topical, relevant, and also deeply nerdy, which I love. And
Yeah.
also, you can catch a Psy on Abstract Machines, which is their Substack. So everyone just watches the Left Hook or watches this on YouTube. Please subscribe to the Abstract Machine. I brought in a Psy. I invited her a couple of days ago. We did not know that Donald Trump would threaten nuclear war, but sadly, it makes this conversation that much more relevant. And the topic for today is the AI industrial complex death cult and how they will profit off of a nuclear war. Now, for a lot of folks, we're gonna drill down, we're gonna go granular. Just be with us, all right? What's common to you or to Sai might not be common to everyone else. So we're gonna take us from what is AI to how these mother effers literally might destroy the world, and then they want to profit off the destruction of the world and take their space rockets to terraform Mars, where they believe they can merge with AI and live forever, and their superior seed will spawn the next version of humanity. You think I'm kidding? I am not. Literally, what I just said is part of their supervillain plot. I swear to God. All right. Uh, Sai, pretend you were talking to my mom. Actually, not my mom. My mom's actually razor sharp. Like your classic stereotypical middle-aged auntie who watches soap operas and then calls you and says, "Sigh, honey, I remember you were nerdy and into robots. What is this AI and this chat GPT? Should I be worried about it, Sigh? Is it like Terminator 2? Talk to me. What is this, Sigh?"
Well, so AI is mostly a marketing term, frankly. When we say AI, we mean artificial intelligence. And there's really nothing intelligent about these systems. So they've been around for a long time. What we think of when we say AI now is usually large language models. So things like ChatGPT or Claude. But I'm going to take you back a little bit before that so we can understand how we got to that point. So it used to be called something like machine learning. So if you've ever heard machine learning or deep learning, that was last hype cycle's version of AI.
Hey, when was it? 20
And
years ago?
yeah, yeah, I mean, it all kind of like kicked off in the 1980s, but like it really gained traction in the mid 2000s, like early mid 2000s. That's when I started working in this area. So just so folks know, I worked for GE Aerospace, and prior to that, I worked as a subcontractor for United Technologies, which is now had been bought out by Raytheon. I was not directly working in defense, but I was working in the type of data management platforms that Palantir also does. So we'll get to them. But for the most part, the difference between a machine learning algorithm, which is like the previous generation of this stuff, and a large language model is a machine learning algorithm is like a specialized pattern recognition algorithm. So you take tons of data and you have to really you have to label that data really cleanly. Like if it's a picture of a cat, you have to tell it it's a picture of a cat. It's a picture of a flower, same with that, right? And you feed it into these algorithms, and all of that really, really cleanly labeled data teaches the algorithm to recognize certain patterns in that data set. And so there are all kinds of different machine learning algorithms for all different kinds of applications. And the ones that I used to work with and the ones that we actually went up against Palantir and would bid on are things like algorithms that are trying to identify failures in big like industrial assets like power plants and show you like a predictive schedule for maintenance for those things. Or I also worked in airline safety. So that's how airline safety departments run their safety programs is they take all of the sensor data off of their entire fleet. They take all of the actions that their pilots have taken. They put all that together into these software platforms and run algorithms against it so that they can find patterns and make new safety rules and make the airline safer. So that's a machine learning algorithm. When we talk about a large language model, those are kind of like machine learning algorithms on steroids. And there was a Google paper that came out in 2017 called Attention is All You Need. And that was the beginning of what are called transformers. And transformers are the bedrock architecture of large language models. And I'm not going to go into what they do because that would confuse everyone, including me, probably. But they essentially allow the system to kind of take a ton of language. These are, they are based on language. They break the language down into sub chunks of like common patterns within language. Those are called tokens. So if you've heard that term before, that's what that means. It's like a piece of a word, 70% of a word in most cases, and like translate that and give it a little number, like a unique identifier.
Mm.
And then it runs on all of those trillions and trillions of pieces of data that have been scraped off of the internet or stolen out of books. And then it basically creates a statistical model of what is going on in that chunk of language, that giant chunk of language. And then when you put in text on one side of this model, it's able to predict what you might want to see on the other side. So what looks like when you're typing into ChatGPT or Claude, what looks like it might be, a human on the other side of that or some kind of an intelligence on the other side is really a super sophisticated pattern matching technology. And so that is, we can kind of get into.
Super sophisticated, super fast pattern matching that has been fed and keeps being fed enormous amount of data, and behind it there's algorithms for it to recognize patterns and ID it and then spit it out before you can say it or think.
Correct. And to essentially predict based on everything it's seen and then what little you give it in addition, what you want from that interaction, right?
Can I ask you, and I'm going to ask you questions like an idiot because I'm a simple English major. When we're typing on our phones, everyone types on their
Mhm.
phones, and your computer or the computer god predicts your future word. Is that a type of AI?
Okay, again with the AI stuff. So it's a type of machine learning, I
Yeah.
would say, right? It's like so predictive typing or predictive text. It's like basically running what you're typing against a list of the words that you could mean, and then it's popping up a suggestion for what it thinks you want. That's like a very very basic version, very very basic version of what an LLM can do, right? But it's not like AI was kind of a marketing term that like people started really throwing around when machine learning got less hypey. And it was in part because these Silicon Valley folks like Elon Musk and Sam Altman and Google DeepMind, the people at Google DeepMind, decided that we were in sort of an existential moment where the singularity, like a artificially intelligent consciousness, was going to erupt into existence, and then either in some people's version, it is help humans transcend humanity, like transhumanism, or it's going to destroy everybody and kill everyone.
Skynet.
And
Ow. Yay.
yeah,
Cyclones. We could just keep
yeah,
going. I have a lot of pop culture references.
yep, yep, yep. And so then this gets into the crazy stuff that you kind of got into it a little bit in your intro about like the different almost religious like cult like things that have developed around those different sides of the AI debate in Silicon Valley. But what led to the sort of productization of AI in the way that we think of it now was that debate and what happened as a result of that debate in terms of OpenAI developing large language models for public use.
So before we get there, I think this is important, right? Because technology, I've often said, like Twitter when it was somewhat helpful. And I said this like 10 years ago when Twitter was not a force to help recruit Nazis and promote Elon Musk's insecurity, daddy issues, and loathing of diversity, is that technology is a tool created by humans. And in the hands of that tool and how it's programmed and used, it can be either used as a force of good, as we've seen, or it can be used as a force of utter destruction and, dare I say, evil. And before we get into that split, and I think that's very important how that split happens, we're talking about machine learning, basically, right? Tools that, based on what you said, hey, this is great. This is technology making the world safer. This is technology that's funky, kind of, but hey, it can be helpful. That it helps you write a text faster. It can help me with research. It can help me with learning. Not perfect, but all
Absolutely.
right. It's a collection of all this data, and they have patterns, and they're thinking the computer's thinking quick. Thinking quick. I'm putting in quotation marks. Awesome. Isn't this good? Cy, can't this help us? Why are you
Yeah, it does
saying
help
this?
us. It helps us. It actually runs most of the large scale computer systems that you think of, like it helps to run like how do you make an airline reservation and how does that airline reservation go into you know, um their customer service stuff, and when your flight gets delayed, how does that ripple out over the network, and like how do they manage all of those different things that fall out? That's a machine learning algorithm that helps them manage all of that stuff, right? It's like it's in weather, it's in academic research, it's in pharmaceuticals research. The technology is in almost all of the systems that we use. It's not neutral. It can absolutely be misused. There are absolutely decisions that it should not be employed for. Um, but there are absolutely beneficial uses of this technology.
So now we have a split in the road, and I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. And I go back and I always tell my peoples, my Californians, that we literally, for better and for worse, are at the seat of all this technology that has simultaneously helped and could potentially destroy humanity. And as such, we have a responsibility to hold these people in check. Before we get into the names of some of these groups, let's talk about some of the characters in this story, right? So let's talk about the split that started happening about 10 years ago, where you have this technology, it exists, it has existed, it's becoming more refined, it's machine learning, it has very useful applications, it's helped us for safety, regulations, jobs, awesome. Let's talk about the supervillain plot, and specifically who leads the supervillain plot and their ideology or uh, end game of this technology.
Well, there's different camps. So what happened was, because Google research was the umbrella under which the transformer architecture emerged, it was tied to Google as a company. And so there were all these ancillary people who were outside: Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Ilya Escobar, who was at OpenAI, Dario, who is now at Anthropic.
Copy.
And so there are all these people kind of like outside, and I can't remember who the main like grouping was of folks who, aside from Altman and Elon Musk, who sort of created a working group around this and said, well, Google can't be the company to bring this into being, because if they create the singularity, then they're gonna, bring about the destruction of all of humankind. Like, we can't allow them to like, get there first. We have to get there first because we're the ones who are going to safeguard humanity. So it's
It goes back.
meanwhile, like Google's old motto of "Don't be evil," like whatever. It's like,
I remember that, folks. Don't be evil. When I applied to Google out of law school for a law job, it literally, I remember in my cover letter, it said, I'm really impressed by "Don't be evil. I want to see what I can do." That was their motto. Don't be evil.
that
Anyway,
was it.
continue.
And because that was a reaction against Microsoft, because they said, well, we're not going to be Microsoft. Microsoft's evil. We're going to be the company that don't be evil. Anyway, so Elon Musk, Sam Altman, some other folks get together and they say, well, what are we going to do about this? Like, we've got to get to this, whatever this is going to be first. So they end up creating OpenAI. And OpenAI started out as a nonprofit. And that's something I think people, outside of tech might have forgotten about. But it was originally supposed to be making this technology for the benefit of all humankind. And that kind of got eroded halfway through the process for a variety of reasons. But they came out with the first series of these large language models that were capable of having non-research folks sort of interact with it. So I don't know if anybody else is out there who remembers like GPT-2 or 2.5 when you would sign in and you'd have like a little playground account with OpenAI, and the only thing it could do was just complete text for you. Like you would type in the beginning of a story and then you would hit enter and it would like write the rest of that story for you. And that was before they actually had an interface that was like a chat, right? So this is like the beginning of that thing. And they didn't know what they were going to do with this, right? It was just like we just want to get to like artificial general intelligence, AGI, before somebody else does, because then we can prevent this like Godzilla version of AI that we made up from destroying everyone.
What could go wrong with when ambitious, morally dubious men rush to create and unleash a technology that they do not understand? But I digress. Continue.
Well, they also like that's and what's so ironic about like deeply, deeply, deeply hurtfully ironic about this whole culture is that they think they're the good guys. They
Yep.
still think they're the good guys. If you look at Elon Musk's tweets, he thinks that he is a rebel fighter, not the empire.
Yeah, he's the
You
savior.
know?
They're the fellowship. They're not Sauron.
Exactly. They're hobbits or they're wizards or they're elves or whatever Lord of the Rings thing they want to drag in. So this is, this is what's happening. They're slowly releasing and developing this technology. Again, GPT is an LLM, a large language model. It runs on these transformers that Google initially developed, but then other companies have taken that further. Everyone at Anthropic was originally pretty much at OpenAI.
Yep.
They were part of what was called the safety team at OpenAI. And those were the folks who, most of these people are very technical people too, keep in mind, but they are the people who are more concerned with making sure this technology is safe once it gets out into the world. And so there starts being this big tension between Altman and some of the people around him who want to commercialize it in the end, and the people who want to keep it safe, right? And so there's that tension
And
between make it faster, put it out, and keep it like until we can make sure that this doesn't cause harm.
But faster means more money, right? And so if you all read the New Yorker piece, the huge profile that was done on Sam Altman and OpenAI came out yesterday, on Monday, released by Andrew Marantz and Ronan Farrow. And just fill in the gaps to our story as it's evolving to the deathscape where we are right now, is that Sam Altman is described by people who work with him or for him and under him as a sociopath, a serial liar, a person who has no morality whatsoever. And Darius Amodai, who's the one who created Anthropic, we'll talk about Anthropic. You've heard it in the news. As I'm so glad Cy brought this up. They were part of the safety team of OpenAI, trying to keep Sam Altman in check. He then dismantles the safety regulations and the safety team of OpenAI because he's rushing before anybody else to create this technology that he doesn't understand and to sell it to some of the world's worst people, such as, I don't know, authoritarian regimes in the Middle East, China, and Russia.
And keep in mind too, it's and I will leave out all of the technical aspect of this where like what goes on inside the model is still like a very nascent thing that people don't completely understand. But there was no like commercial path for this as as a piece of software or a product. Like it's not like they were trying to solve a defined problem out in the world, but this actually is a applicable product that could solve that problem. They were just saying we want to make artificial general intelligence because we think that entity could actually help humankind. And Altman's like famous for saying like, when he was asked by investors like, well, how are you going to monetize this? How are you going to get back the capital expenditure that you've made in order to create this? He was like, well, I always assumed that when we got to AGI, we'd ask AGI how to monetize it. It's like so they eventually get to Chat GPT 3, and this at this point Dario Amodei and the rest of the safety team are like really concerned because they're pushing this out into the world before it is safe, before
What
it
year
has
was that?
been. I want to say that was 2021.
All right, so all pretty recent, folks.
hmm And I remember when this happened because I was like really into like GPT-2 and 2.5, and I really liked using the autocomplete feature. And you would just purchase credits like as you used it basically. And it again, fairly useless, but it was actually a lot more like creative. And I won't go into why that is, but like as these models get bigger and bigger, and they're eating more and more data, and they're requiring more and more energy to train them, right? That's really where the cost is for these companies, is in training these models, not in necessarily operating the models, although there is a lot of cost there. So it's like that's where they need a ton of money. They need a ton of money to continue to train these models and make them better. And that's why they're pushing so hard to get it out into the world to make money off of it. And so at a point where GPT-3 came out, they wanted to release a commercial version. The safety team at OpenAI was like, no, we're just not going to do this. And they eventually break off and form Anthropic, which is supposed to be like the moral, more like upstanding, safe version of an LLM. But it's the same technology, different model, same technology.
Got it. And different leadership.
Different leadership. But again, they're going to run into exactly the same problems. And this is the problems that we see in the entire industry, which is like there is, at this point, this is my personal view and a view of a number of other people in the industry, but like there's no possible way that they can actually make a profitable product based on how much money they've already put in. And the industry is showing tons of strain because of this. So you think the data centers, the chips, the folks who are actually still employed, like OpenAI supposedly doubling their workforce, like when they're just burning billions of dollars a year and they can't raise that, they can't even get to the raise that they were asking for. So this is also why when we think of like the New Yorker piece and the stuff that Sam Altman is starting to say, they are very desperate. They are very desperate. They require something along on the order of $600 billion just to stay afloat within the next like 5 years. And they just had trouble raising 100.
And another warning sign, and again, I'm just an English major, so I try the best to make sense of a complex world with my savage brain. But I'm looking at Oracle,
Mhm.
co-founded by Larry Ellison, the single largest donor to the Friends of the IDF, sixth richest man on earth. Him and his nepo baby son have now taken over CBS, Paramount, have made the bid for Warner Brothers, are getting Saudi money to buy Warner Brothers, Qatari
TikTok.
money. Took over TikTok because it was TikTok that radicalized the children against Israel, not the genocide. It was the TikTok. Not making this up, but Oracle, and I'm sure you saw this, Cy, fired 30,000
Yes.
employees to allegedly make the budget to fund an AI data center because the banks weren't giving them the loan to do it. And for
Gross.
that, I said, "Ooh, this can't be good," because as a simpleton, I've been looking at AI and crypto, and I'm very skeptical. And as a person who went through the 2008 economic crisis, this to me reminds me of the mortgage crisis, but bigger and dumber. And if these people are all these AI zealots and all these AI proselytizers, if they're correct, then as they tell us, AI is so revolutionary, and they brag about this openly, it will just destroy white collar jobs and factory jobs. So that means number one, a complete type of economic apocalypse for millions of workers. All right, so your success is based upon the annihilation of workers, which you openly say. However, however, if you're bullshitting us, and if our entire economy now, if you look at the Super Bowl commercials, I was paying attention. If you look at the Super Bowl, the commercials were AI, crypto, gambling, weight loss, beer. I'm like, huh. And then I was reading and it said like the 11 companies that are essentially fluffing this weak economy right now are basically AI.
Yeah.
But again, I see it as all speculative. I haven't seen the jobs yet. I haven't seen this massive growth yet. It's investment, investment, investment. It's massive data centers. So to my simple brain, and this is why I ask you this, I'm being very sincere here because I don't know, but I've always asked people who are experts. It seems that this is a big bubble that's about to burst.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it.
I was not hoping for that answer. I was hoping
Yeah.
that no, they will
Yeah.
create
No, yeah,
they
you
will
got it.
create
No.
new industries and people would get jobs.
unfortunately, I don't see any way for that to happen. And even with with the data centers, if you follow Ed Zitron, he came out with a recent report that he went really deep into the data on how many of these data centers, even though they like if they've already been capitalized, if the deals have already been announced, whatever, how many of them actually getting built and getting turned on. And of the something like 216 gigawatts that have been, signed, something like 5 gigawatts have actually come online. And the capex expenditure for most analysts is going down next year. So his question is, and what I think is the right question is, well, where's all that money going,
There you
right?
go.
Like
There you
all
go.
of those NVIDIA chips that have already been bought. If a data center actually takes 2 to 3 years to build and you've already bought all the chips, chips are sitting in a warehouse for 3 years. At that point, they'll be out of date. Like, what? you know?
It's like
So
a
this
guy
isn't
bought
just
his.
about the tech itself not necessarily serving a defined user need, and we're having to go in and try and shoehorn it into, oh, well, it can code for you. Oh, it can write your term papers. It can like attend class for you. It's like there's not just that part of the vaporware aspect of it. It's also the physical assets that are just not actually coming online in the way that one would need, or in the current capitalization model that one would need. We can
Like,
get into why that
China will
capitalization
do
model is
something.
wrong.
China will do something with it. UAE will do something with it. They're the ones who were given the Nvidia chips because of a bribe
Yeah,
by the UAE, the brother of the Sultan,
yeah.
who spent $500 million in Donald Trump's and his kids' crypto
The Liberty
firm.
Financial, yeah.
Yeah, at Liberty
I think it
Financial.
was 2 billion.
Yeah, and in return, he got the super secret Nvidia chips, which are defense agencies said, please don't give these super intelligent chips to UAE because they might be a national security threat. And Donald Trump said, "Quid pro quo." That happened, folks, and that story was forgotten in a day. But all right, but where there is money, side, and there's always going to be money, even if everyone's starving. You know who's going to be eating well? The military-industrial complex. Even now, as Americans can't afford bread and we don't have money for USAID, the Trump administration has asked Americans to pony up $200 billion for this failed, unwinnable war. When did AI get into the military-industrial complex?
So when we're talking about AI and the military, again, we're talking about machine learning is the first version of this that comes in, and that's still the version that is most integrated into the military. From this, I'm actually going to be drawing from the research of Katrina Manson, who just came out with a great book called Project Maven. It was literally published something like a week and a half ago. So
Wow.
I devoured it this weekend. So I can bring you some insights from that. But it happened as a result, and this is a very interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. I certainly wasn't, as a result of one person in particular, and that person is not somebody you've ever heard of. His name is Colonel Drew Cukor,
Hmm.
and he was, in large measure, the reason why machine learning AI got into the military and became something that actually drove the targeting process. And he is actually the reason why Palantir became an AI driven company, because
Wow.
he was the one to convince them that AI was worth their time to invest in because the Defense Department was willing to pay for it. And he started out in the Marine intelligence program and then ended up creating Project Maven, which if people have heard about Project Maven, that it's his creation. It's not a creation of Palantir. He ended up like Palantir ended up winning the bids around Project Maven and coming and sort of like being the contractor of record for the majority of it. But he, Drew Cukor, was the driving force behind most of this.
Interesting
And
how these people take credit for stuff they've never actually created, if you've noticed.
oh,
Like
yes,
Elon Musk and
absolutely.
Sam Altman and all these people. But I digress. Please continue.
Yeah. And so it was Drew Cukor's team, the Project Maven team, which was again housed in the Department of Defense in the Pentagon, which did all of the actual work involved in getting these technologies up and running and integrated with all of the different parts of the military that they now are. And they ran into a big problem, which actually goes into the targeting of the girls' school in Manab recently, of not having good data for the algorithms to
Mm.
feed these algorithms, because you need really good, clean data to feed a machine learning algorithm, especially something like a computer vision algorithm that you want to put, you want to feed the video feeds from your drone, and you want to process that on, your handheld and see like, oh, this is the person's car that we're trying to track throughout a landscape. And you need really good data to say like, what is a motorcycle? What is a car? In all different kinds of terrain. So it started way back in like 2013, 2014, again with Drew Kuhar being the person who is driving this forward. And through the long like arc of this project, it ends up that it is integrated into a lot of the different divisions of the military. And there is reporting that it was involved. Project Maven Smart System is the name of the software, was involved in that targeting on the girls' school in Manab. And the reason that it hit the girls' school is because of out of date data. And my sort of theory around why that happened, because the data that they had in the database was from 2013 through 2016. So this is like 10-year-old data that they were using to create the strike package. And that would normally not pass muster through, there's actually a really rigorous chain of actions that have to be taken to actually get that weapon to go into a target, right? And one of those things is the distinction between a combatant and a non-combatant, and you have to like get sign off. A human in the loop. Human has to oversee like so many different parts of that process. That even if technology shortens that, what's called the kill chain, I know it's awful, like you still are having, you're supposed to have a human for legal purposes reviewing aspects of that. And they should have caught the fact that that data was so outdated that you literally could have gotten open source feeds of satellite imagery and seen that that was a school.
That's why you need human oversight and competent leadership and people who know how to use this technology. So you don't mistake a school for a combatant zone and end up killing instead 165 girls.
Exactly. And so this is the problem, because that Maven was always sold as something that would help that exact scenario never happen again, right? If we have machines to do all the data processing for us, and we have machines that can catch things that humans don't catch, then we're going to have safer, better, less like more humanitarian warfare, which is like kind of a contradiction in terms, but that was the pitch, right? And instead you get the bias towards speed, and then the kill chain becomes so shortened, and people have, if we're like, if let's say Hegseth said you have to target 1,000 targets in one day, then how much time are you going to have to evaluate each target package? There was an exercise.
And if all the competent individuals are fired because they're seen as too woke, meaning they have ovaries or pigmentation that looks like mine, and they don't bend the knee to Jesus or Pete Hegseth, they're removed and replaced with, I don't know, 19 and 20-year-old cosplay crusading reeks as your human oversight. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, and those people are under like a horrible amount of pressure too. Like one thing that I'm not a military person. I don't usually like read a lot of like battle stuff. But I did have a lot of appreciation for what people go through on the battlefield after reading this book, Project Maven. And these people don't want to be out there actually killing civilians any more than, you know, you or I would, honestly. Well, the vast majority of them don't. But it's, that this technology, if you give someone 72 seconds maximum to go through all the steps that they need to verify the information is correct, that this is the right thing they're supposed to be targeting, and actually launch those bombs, you're going to get mistakes like that. And the faster you make the AI targeting systems, the more autonomous they are, the more mistakes like that are going to happen, unless you have some way of introducing friction, which is exactly what they don't want to do.
No
And so I
accountability, no oversight, no guardrails, speed, speed, speed. Now, now, no. The motto of a lot of these sociopaths, once it was a good motto in Silicon Valley in the 80s. Again, folks, I was born and raised there. It was break stuff. Now they're literally like, break the
that's break
world,
stuff. Yeah.
break the world. Who cares as long as we get money? And now take us to 2026. You already have how these companies run by these deranged individuals are essentially bullshit artists who are not brilliant by any means, who oftentimes use and abuse other people's creations, market themselves, and are in a race to get the best contracts, even though they don't necessarily have the goods, are using machine learning or quote unquote AI in this illegal war. Because Iran, we mentioned this right before we pressed live, I think Iran did something very smart here. Iran last week, folks, we talked about in the left hook, by name, listed American tech companies and said, okay, United States, if you're going to continue these high profile assassinations of our people, we'll retaliate. We're going to retaliate against Amazon. We'll retaliate against Meta. We'll retaliate against NVIDIA. We'll retaliate against Palantir. And we're going to go after their headquarters because we know that you, the military industrial complex, are using their technology to engage in this war. And I said, you know what? Brilliant. Because the people who run the show are the oligarchy. They're the ones who gave JD Vance to Donald Trump, Peter Thiel did, and they want to live forever. They don't want to die. And last week, if you all recall, Iran bombed Amazon's headquarters in Bahrain. So these companies are deeply invested in this war using their technology. How so? You've already talked about one, Project Maven, using outdated data that the military use outdated data with this AI technology that landed on not on enemy combatants, but 165 girls literally on the day that the war started. How else are they completely immersed in this war machine?
So the companies, and I put out an appeal to folks who are working to tech workers at these companies this morning because there is something that you can do, especially in advance of tonight. That the companies that are directly involved in this are, and I may not get everybody, but Palantir, AWS specifically,
That's
um,
Amazon.
Amazon Web Services, correct. Microsoft Azure, so that's their cloud management pipeline. There's Google Cloud, especially folks who are working on Project Nimbus or any of the defense cloud architectures there. Booz Allen Hamilton, which is a defense contractor, but they also are providing technology. Anduril, that's a startup that does autonomous weapons. I'm probably forgetting some folks, but
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA sells chips, but they are not involved in the active targeting that will go on tonight.
Yeah,
So
but
that's
aren't they
why
in the list? Didn't they list them?
Mhm.
Didn't Iran list them?
If Iran listed them, then more power to Iran. They sold the GPUs that run this, but I think when we're talking about the tech workers who
Yeah, they
might have
listed. They listed NVIDIA.
yeah. So for folks who are at these companies, I think
Can I give you the list? Can I give you the list?
yeah, go
Uh,
for it.
Apple, Google, Microsoft, Meta, NVIDIA, Intel, IBM, Cisco, Oracle, Dell, HP, Palantir, Boeing, GE, uh, Spire Solutions, G42, a UA-based AI firm. And these are the two that were really interesting, Tesla and JP Morgan.
Okay. Apple's an interesting one because Apple is the only one of these companies that has categorically refused to work with the Defense Department. So if they're doing something with Apple, then it's probably more of an economic move. Um, Oracle's definitely one, though, that's involved with Maven and targeting systems. So if you are an employee at one of these companies that's involved in one of these projects, the most important thing for you to do right now is to preserve evidence because any kind like the legal mechanisms that exist on the other side of this are weak from the US's perspective, but there are ways for non-US nationals to take these companies to court ex post facto. And if you have no documentary evidence of these things occurring, which is specifically illegal targeting packages, then it's going to be very hard for those people to prove that this happened. So please, for the sake of everybody in Iran, preserve your internal communications, preserve any targeting packages that you know target civilian infrastructure because that's illegal. It's just flat illegal. Preserve any flags that were raised and what happened to those flags. and preserve any of your contracts where the terms of use or terms of service are explicitly negotiated, you were negotiated around or broken. So the second thing
Well,
that you can do is to
that's great.
refuse, yeah, refuse illegal targets. Like if like Maven has about 10,000 active users, which means people who are using Maven to target, to track for intelligence. If even a small number of those people refuse to send the next list of illegal targets tonight, that saves tons of lives. It's not enough to save everybody, but you can in fact refuse to do those things. So
The first command given to us by Timothy Snyder in his book on tyranny was don't obey in advance. Just say
right.
no, resist, be an objector. And Eichmann himself said, "I'm just a cog in the wheel," and that was not enough to save him from being hung during the war trials. Right? Um, it's an incestuous cabal, folks. You'll notice the same names keep coming up and up and up. In the left hook, we've tried our best to bring on experts like Cy and others because we keep trying to connect the dots. Last week, we had Ellie, I think, who's watching, and Kate Justice talk about the Larry Ellisons, how it's not just the media and not just support for a war and not just support for Trump, but also like Cy said, Oracle. Guess what? Larry
Yep.
Ellison's company winning all these contracts, right? Sam Altman, who was there. Just look at, I've always said, history will show us the supervillains. If you look at inauguration of Donald Trump, who was in the front row? It was all these big tech folks, right? All of them were there. The Musks and the Bezoses, the Altmans, they were all there. And one of the people who was knee deep in it, and just to show you how incestuous it is, and part of the Epstein circle, a person who shared Epstein's contempt of humanity, of regulation, of accountability was Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is a big Christian nationalist and a billionaire. Peter Thiel has been friends with David Sachs and Elon Musk. They're part of the PayPal South African oligarchy. Peter Thiel has literally groomed the entire career of JD Vance. Thiel hand delivered JD Vance to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's
And David Sachs.
Dave. There you go. I was going there.
Sorry.
No, this is Donald Trump's czar of AI and crypto is
David Sachs.
David Sachs, and Peter Thiel was the one who told Elon Musk. Excuse me, Peter Thiel was the one who told Epstein about Palantir, and then you've heard the audio recording of Epstein telling Ehud Barak to invest in Palantir, and Ehud is like, Palan what? Palan, Palant, and then Alex Carr is a sociopath who proudly and openly is helping Israel during a genocide, and it has gone millions of dollars of contracts from UK, Europe, and the US, and is completely involved in Project Maven and what's happening right now. Talk to us about Palantir and its involvement.
Palantir it started as a startup between Peter Thiel and Alex Karp. They went to Stanford together. And I don't know exactly how they got this idea that they should work in defense contracting. But they had, yeah, it's probably money. But they had this idea for doing data management for defense, and they couldn't really get any money for it, though, and outside of what Peter Thiel was willing to put toward it. And where they finally found purchase was in the CIA's investment wing called InQtel. And InQtel has been the incubator for many technologies that go on to become a part of our daily lives. But Palantir was the Palantir survived because the CIA floated them,
There you go.
essentially.
There you go.
And so they started with mostly our tax dollars
Yep.
and continue with 60% of their revenue coming from our tax dollars. Um, they were they started as a data management platform, so they were competing with folks like Oracle or SAP or GE. And like I said, I went up in bids against them and had to be quite well aware of their products, which included something called Foundry, and you might have heard of that in terms of ICE and Homeland Security. It is a data management platform where you can pipe in all of these data streams and then query those data streams to try to come up with patterns inside of whatever that mess of data is, right? And so that's what they were doing first. And Alex Karp is such an abrasive person that they were actually on their way out of the Defense Department in 2016, 2017, when Colonel Drew Cukor decided that they were the best company to sort of take Maven forward. And this is like the part that's kind of frustrating because it is possible Palantir could have failed if not for getting the major defense contracts that it ended up getting, and not for its focus on AI, which is what Drew Cukor convinced Palantir was worth its time to invest in, instead of just data management. And so a ton of cash was then pumped into Palantir because of Maven, and now they have much more permeation into all of these really key systems within the government that it's going to make it that much harder to rip them out of later. So they do everything from, again, data management and machine learning algorithms to targeting for Project Maven and hooking up to autonomous weapons and all kinds of things like that. So they're certainly not the only company at all, but they are one of the major players at this point. And I think Maven is even getting to the point, and I forgot the terminology for this, where it is going to have congressional um, okay, where it gets its own dedicated budget from now on.
And Palantir, folks, is named. Look how they misuse pop culture. It's named as one of those seeing stones in
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings used by the evil magician, not Gandalf, right?
Well, to be fair, he did steal them from the elves. Like he did
Uh,
everything that
but
became
then he
evil.
used thank you. That was super nerdy, and I appreciate
I'm
it.
a really big Lord of the Rings dork.
You are correct, but it was used for evil and surveillance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're helping the United States of America and other countries create a surveillance state. And Alex Karp has proudly told the world and his own team, his own workers, that yes, we're helping Israel defend Western civilization. If you don't like it, well, you can leave. And our technology can be used to kill people, but as long as we're killing the bad guys, it's fine. That's almost an exact paraphrase of what he said.
He actually said he said it to Katrina Manson, who wrote Project Maven. He also said it on a panel discussion, but
Yes.
this is something Alex Karp actually said. He said that he has always wanted to be able to put fentanyl-laced urine into autonomous drones that can then go and spray his short sellers.
Yep.
This is the kind of guy we're dealing with here.
And who was pepped up on something. It looks like cocaine.
Oh yeah, yeah. I thought it was coke too.
Yeah, from people, I've never done the cocaine. It sounds awesome. No disrespect to cocaine or people who do it, but I've seen some people on it. It seems pretty cokey.
I
Do you feel better,
agree
folks?
too.
Also, okay, now you also mentioned it's not just the same characters, but LLMs are also involved here,
Yeah.
like Anthropic. What is the difference?
So what the LLMs are doing right now, not so again, Maven is not an AI LLM based platform. It is machine learning. And what they've done with the LLMs is because of this like fervor around this particular version of
Language
AI,
learning models.
large language models. Yeah. So think Claude, GPT, Gemini, right? It's just like hypey. And so they're like, well, we've got to have that too, the Defense Department, right? And so the way that they're folding that in right now is that it's just like you can like chat with Claude or chat with GPT to go through like documents or analysis and get, the kind of results that you would normally get if you were chatting with GPT. So GPT, Claude, LLMs, whatever, are not helping with targeting right now. And I think that was one of the things that Kevin Baker, a reporter, has a really good article on this on Substack called Kill Chain about Maven and LLM's involvement in targeting. But his research also goes into this like and how it goes back into the 1960s of like targeting mistakes. But because there's such a hype around LLMs, then people are paying attention to the wrong thing here, which is not that Claude targeted the girls' school. It's that the faulty data and the pressure for speed for these systems to compress the kill chain is the real problem. And it's the older systems like Maven that are doing the bulk of the damage right now. It's not Claude, it's not GPT.
But anyone who thinks, but Claude's the good one. It's the same thing with Blue Sky. This is the good one. I'm like, I'm old enough. I have gray hair. I've heard this about every technology. It always
No,
gets usurped and used and abused by the world's worst people.
the reason Anthropic didn't want to be involved in it, because A, Claude doesn't have the capabilities technically to do that kind of stuff. They just wanted to make sure they didn't have legal liability if it was misused in that way.
And that's
Because
how
that's where
people wanted to use it, like killer robots, mass surveillance against U.S. citizens.
which Claude can't even do right now. Like LLMs can't do that stuff, but they were just covering their ass by saying like, yeah, we're not going to be involved in that, even though our thing can't do that. And then when they push back really hard, that was the point at which Dario Amodei was like, okay, never mind. Actually, I don't want to touch this because it's completely legal limbo. And I'm sure that they're going to be pushing on that. I mean, look at what they're doing. So anyone who they can say later, oh, well, it was this person's fault. It was Anthropic's fault. It wasn't our fault. That's Sam Altman stepping right into the line of fire there. So
And
couldn't
and
happen to a
guess
better person.
And guess what, folks? Something I've been trying to warn about, I'll continue warning, is something I've been trying to pay attention to is these companies, it's all the same incestuous circle, are spending hundreds of millions of dollars now across both sides of the aisle. In California, they're threatening to spend up to $500 million ahead of the primaries. The co-founder of Palantir, Joe Lonsdale, has already started a pact that has spent over $100 million, giving it to many Democrats. Sherry Bustos, who was the ex-DCCC chair, a former Democratic representative, became a lobbyist. Guess who her clients are? OpenAI and Oracle. She's become the president of a new centrist, center-left Democrat, pro-Democrat think tank that is going to spend millions of dollars ahead of the elections on pro-growth deregulation money. Notice the people who are taking money from these companies. It's all of them. Notice who doesn't speak out against Palantir or Elon Musk or AI or crypto, Gavin Newsom and others. And notice who is criticizing them. It isn't the Democratic leadership. It's Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Steve Bannon. They notice there's a wide open lane here. They're taking on Israel. They're taking on the war. They're taking on AI. I'll repeat my warning. I don't care if people say I'm a broken record. You're not paying attention. This is a huge issue and a huge threat. The smart folks are recognizing it. And these people are literally buying off your favorite Democrats. There's 6 months left in the primary. If you think your Democratic fighter like Gavin Newsom will fight against these guys, Cy, what do you think? Maybe I'm a cynic.
I don't think you're a cynic, no, because money talks in the system. The I hate to say like all of these like the silver lining is that these people might completely tank the economy and become poisoned, like but that
I
isn't
think they will. For those who joined us, the 2,100 people, Cy shares my English major brain's assessment that this is a big bubble that's about to burst.
yeah, and the oil shock is making it a lot worse for a lot of reasons. Helium is not coming through, which is important for all of the Silicon Valley products. Oil's not coming through. Liquid natural gas is a huge reason, like how you cool like data centers. So these things are getting that much more expensive to operate at the exact time that they're burning through like so much runway. So that's why like I think you can smell the desperation on Sam Altman, and it's total Schadenfreude for me. I'm not gonna lie,
But you know what
but
my
like
fear but you know what my fear is? Like you said with the helium, we've talked about this in the left hook as well. Qatar supplies third of the world's helium, and in addition to oil and gas, fertilizer, and helium. Helium goes to laptops, chips, and also MRIs. All of this is being disrupted. And my fear is this is just wait, my prediction. If we elect the wrong people, if we have free and fair elections, and these people, mother effers, are paid by all the same people, this was going to happen almost 20 years to the day of the biggest recession since the Great Depression. We were told these same financial institutions are too big to fail. F you, Mary and Jose and Juan and Jane. Good luck. But JP Morgan and the financial institutions, you're too big to fail. And then we'll be told AI and crypto are too big to fail, side. And I hope people take out their pitchfork.
hey, yeah, I think I would argue like they might try to bail out like JP Morgan and stuff. Like
Again,
I don't know that that's gonna work with AI, frankly.
I hope you're
Um,
right.
yeah, I don't know if that's going to work with AI. I think it's going to end up looking a lot more like the FTX collapse, but just like a lot bigger and worse.
And I hope the worst people lose their money. I hope the worst people lose their money. And speaking of FTX, and according to the Ronan Farrow, Andrew Morant's New Yorker article, who was Sam Altman of OpenAI compared to? Sam Bankman-Fried
Yes.
and Bernie Madoff and the Theranos lady, Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth
Uh,
Holmes.
I have Ronan Farrow and Andrew Morantz on at 3 p.m. to talk about their New Yorker article. And I promised Danielle Moody I would only do 3 shows a day. Uh, Today's
Uh,
gonna be going straight from 12 to 6:30, but it's
oh my
okay
gosh.
because there might be a nuclear war and the
I
decimation of
know.
people. So, and
Okay.
I have Allison coming on in 2 minutes. Mother, she wrote. But before I do, Cy, everyone loved you. I hope you read the comments and they said, "Wow, she made me so much smarter. I understand so much in 1 hour that I didn't understand before." That's what Cy does. Cy, can you shamelessly promote yourself?
Yeah, y'all come follow me at Abstract Machines. That's where I write mostly about technology and cultural studies. And like I said, Virginia Heffernan of the New Republic and I have a new podcast called Omni Shambles. And so we are going to be doing a weekly where we go through one sort of shambles, one mess at a time, and hopefully make that a little bit better for y'all. We just came up with our first episode on the Doge testimony from Nate Kavanaugh and desk killers. So if that's your jam, come on by because it's free.
And where is it again? Shamelessly promote it.
Omnishambles Pod at Substack, and then I am at Abstract Machines. So you can say Sybil Canterel, like so Cy CY, but come on over to Abstract Machines on Substack if you want to follow me.
Thank you all. This is Left Hook. Everything is free because I'm a terrible capitalist. Please, if you can, at the very least, just subscribe and like if you're watching on YouTube. Share this conversation. I think it'll help a lot of people. If you want to become a paid subscriber, I have a 25% off forever special, theleftook.substack.com/special. It's $3.75 a month forever. So if you don't want to pay the $5, pay $3.75. If you don't have $3.75, it is literally free. So I don't know what else to say. Maybe just subscribe. Thank you all for
Won't
watching.
even buy you a gallon of gas
Yeah,
anymore.
what?
Come
Literally,
on.
not even a gallon of gas in Virginia. I'll get like seven. I get 75% of a gallon if I'm
Yeah.
lucky. I'll be grateful, and I'll be grateful. Thank you, Sai.
Thank
So
you,
fantastic.
Wash.
It was so good. Come back anytime, and folks, come back in a minute. I'm going to have the great Allison Gill on. Be kind, be informed. Don't be a sociopath. Don't be a Skynet's enablers, and don't be a fat.
Ah.